Gene Hackman, a Hollywood legend, a name synonymous with some of the greatest performances in cinematic history. A career spanning decades, from gritty crime dramas to intense thrillers, earning him 2 Academy Awards and the admiration of millions. But in his later years, he stepped away from the spotlight, choosing a quieter life away from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. No red carpets, no flashing cameras, just a peaceful existence with his wife, Betsy, in their secluded home. But that peace was shattered with a chilling discovery. A call to 911, a panicked voice, and a scene straight out of a mystery novel. Gene Hackman and his wife were found dead under circumstances that raised more questions than answers. Not just them, but one of their beloved dogs was also found lifeless. A home that should have been a place of rest and comfort, now a crime scene. Or was it? The initial speculation was carbon monoxide poisoning, an all-too-common silent killer, especially in the winter months. It seemed like the logical answer. No signs of forced entry, no immediate evidence of foul play. But as investigators dug deeper, that theory crumbled. No leaks, no gas-related issues. Something else happened in that house. The details only got stranger. The front door? Reportedly wide open. Gene? Discovered in the mudroom, as if he had fallen. Betsy? Found in the bathroom, pills scattered around her. A portable heater nearby, adding another layer of mystery. And then there was the dog, locked in a closet in a kennel, also dead. What happened in those final moments? Was this a tragic accident, a medical emergency, or something far more sinister? This wasn't just another Hollywood tragedy. It was a puzzle, a story with missing pieces. And the biggest question remains: what really happened to Gene Hackman and his wife in their final days? It started with a routine check, nothing out of the ordinary. A caretaker, responsible for overseeing the property, arrived at the Hackman residence. But what should have been a simple visit turned into something far more unsettling. As he approached the house, something felt off. The front door, wide open. No signs of life. No movement. Just an eerie silence. What he saw next made him immediately reach for his phone. A 911 call that would kickstart an investigation filled with contradictions and unanswered questions. He reported finding a person inside the house, then quickly corrected himself, saying he found 2, 1 deceased. It was a strange slip. Was he unsure of what he saw? Did he initially believe one of them was still alive? Or was it something else? In the call, he repeatedly emphasized that he hadn't gone inside. He said the house was locked, but that didn't align with reports that the front door was wide open. If he never stepped inside, how did he know there were 2 bodies in separate rooms? He claimed to have seen Betsy from a window, lying on the floor, unresponsive. But Gene? He was found in the mudroom, an entirely different location. How did the caretaker know he was there? Did someone else enter before him? Or was he withholding information? The operator pressed for details. Were they breathing? Were they awake? The caretaker didn't know. He avoided specifics, repeating that he just needed someone to get there fast. He sounded shaken, but also scattered, as if struggling to describe the scene. At one point, he said they appeared to be awake or alert, before immediately contradicting himself, insisting they were not. Was he panicked? Or was there something more to his hesitation? And then there was the timeline. Authorities would later determine that Gene and Betsy had likely been dead for up to 2 weeks before they were discovered. Their bodies had already begun mummification, an eerie detail that raised even more questions. How had no one noticed? No family? No close friends? No one checking in? They had an estimated $80 million in assets, yet their home sat untouched, their fate unknown until that single phone call. The details of their deaths painted a disturbing picture. Gene, a once towering figure of strength, was found collapsed in the mudroom, as if he had fallen and couldn't get back up. Betsy, in the bathroom, surrounded by pills. A portable heater near her. Was it significant or just a coincidence? And then, the most bizarre detail. The dog. One of their 3 dogs, dead inside a kennel, locked in a closet in the same bathroom where Betsy lay. What were the chances that both the dog and its owner died in the same room? Did the dog ingest pills, or was it locked away for another reason? With carbon monoxide poisoning ruled out, investigators were left with a puzzle. If it wasn't an accident, then what was it? A double tragedy? A case of neglect? Or something more sinister? The caretaker's call, the contradictions, the unsettling condition of the bodies, it all suggested that there was more to this story than met the eye. Was Gene suffering from a medical emergency, collapsing where he stood, unable to call for help? Did Betsy, overwhelmed with grief, take her own life in a haze of pills? Or did something else happen in that house? Something that no one is willing to talk about? As the pieces of this strange case slowly come together, one thing is certain. The mystery of Gene Hackman and his wife's final days is far from solved. When the news first broke, one theory dominated the conversation: carbon monoxide poisoning. It seemed like the simplest, most logical explanation. A silent killer, odorless and invisible, claiming the lives of an elderly couple and their dog in the privacy of their home. It had happened before to countless others. Entire families had been wiped out by undetected leaks, their deaths eerily peaceful, with no struggle, no signs of distress. At first glance, the Hackman case fit that pattern perfectly. Gene found collapsed in the mudroom, Betsy lifeless in the bathroom, their dog locked in a closet, also dead. No reports of a break-in, no immediate signs of violence. The pieces seemed to fall into place. A tragic accident, a faulty heater, a gas leak, or some unseen issue that had filled the home with poison over time. Perhaps they had gone to sleep, never realizing they were breathing in their own demise. But then, investigators arrived. The fire department conducted a thorough sweep of the house, using specialized equipment to detect even the slightest traces of carbon monoxide. They checked the vents, the heating system, the appliances, every possible source that could have been responsible. The results? Nothing. No leak, no buildup of gas, no explanation. The gas company followed up with their own investigation, ensuring no missed details. Again, nothing. No malfunctioning equipment, no blocked vents, no faulty heaters. Whatever killed Gene and Betsy, it wasn't carbon monoxide. With that theory completely ruled out, the case took an even stranger turn. If it wasn't poisoning, then what was it? A sudden medical emergency? A double tragedy that just happened to occur within the same time frame? Or something more deliberate? The discovery of pills in the bathroom next to Betsy raised new questions. Had she taken them intentionally, or was it an accident? If Gene had suffered a fatal fall, why hadn't he called for help? Why had no one heard anything? And then there was the dog, its death seemingly unrelated to anything carbon monoxide could cause. If the dog had simply passed out from fumes, why was it locked inside a closet? Had someone placed it there? And if so, why? With the carbon monoxide theory dismantled, the search for answers only grew more intense. The investigators weren't just dealing with an unexpected death, they were dealing with a mystery. A case where nothing made sense, where each answer led to more questions. Gene Hackman, a man who had spent his life commanding the screen, was now at the center of a real-life drama. And the truth behind what happened inside that house was still waiting to be uncovered. Theories about what happened inside the Hackman home continue to swirl, each one offering a possible explanation, but none providing a definitive answer. Without clear evidence of foul play, investigators and the public alike have been left to piece together the final moments of Gene and Betsy Hackman. Was this a tragic accident? A series of unfortunate events? Or was there something more to this story? Something hidden beneath the surface? One possibility is a medical emergency followed by suicide. Gene Hackman was 94 years old. Though he had stepped away from the public eye, it's well known that he had battled health issues in the past. Could he have suffered a fatal fall, a stroke, or a heart attack, collapsing in the mudroom with no one there to help him? If Betsy found him like that, helpless, unresponsive, could she have made a devastating decision in a moment of overwhelming grief? The scattered pills in the bathroom suggest a deliberate action, but if that were the case, why was she found in a separate room? Wouldn't she have wanted to be by his side? Wouldn't she have called for help first? The details don't entirely line up, leaving gaps in the theory that are difficult to ignore. Then there's the argument-turned-tragedy theory. A heated dispute escalates, perhaps over something trivial, perhaps over something more serious. In a moment of anger, one pushes the other, and an accident becomes irreversible. Could Gene have fallen and hit his head? Did Betsy panic, realizing what had happened? If she believed she was responsible, could she have spiraled into despair, resorting to pills as a way to escape the unbearable guilt? If so, does this explain why the dog was locked in the closet, an attempt to keep it away from the chaos? Did it ingest the pills, becoming another tragic victim in an already devastating situation? But then there's a much darker possibility: neglect or foul play. The timeline alone raises suspicion. How could a couple of their wealth and status remain undiscovered for nearly 2 weeks? Where was their staff, their friends, their family? An estate worth an estimated $80 million. Was someone waiting in the shadows, anticipating their deaths? And if so, could that person have had a hand in what happened? The bodies were reportedly found in different rooms, yet the caretaker who called 911 seemed to know both were dead without stepping inside. Could someone have tampered with the scene before authorities arrived? Were there details being withheld? Finally, there's the accidental overdose and unattended death theory. Betsy may have taken too many pills, intentionally or not, and lost consciousness. If Gene found her, but was unable to help, whether due to his own declining health, a medical emergency, or simply confusion, could he have tried to reach for help, but collapsed before ever making it out the door? If this was the case, why was there no record of an emergency call from either of them? Why hadn't anyone in their circle checked in when they went silent for days? Each theory provides pieces of the puzzle, but none fully complete the picture. And with the evidence as fragmented as it is, the truth behind Gene and Betsy Hackman's final days may never be known. What really happened inside that house? Was this simply a tragedy of old age and circumstance? Or was there something more? Something waiting to be uncovered? Despite the shocking nature of Gene and Betsy Hackman's deaths, one thing has stood out as particularly unusual: the overwhelming silence from those closest to them. In the aftermath of their passing, only one of Hackman's 3 children has publicly acknowledged the tragedy. The others? No statements, no visible grief shared with the public, no urgent calls for answers. It raises a difficult question. Was there distance between Gene and his family? Had time and circumstances created an emotional separation long before his physical departure? For a man of his stature, one would assume a tight-knit support system, a network of loved ones and caretakers ensuring his well-being. But the reality appears to be something different. If Jean and Betsy had been left alone for nearly 2 weeks without anyone realizing something was wrong, what does that say about the level of contact they had with their family and friends? Was this a case of estrangement, or simply a byproduct of an aging couple retreating from the public eye, living out their final years in solitude? Then there's the question of the house maintenance workers. A property like theirs, worth millions, would likely have routine upkeep, landscaping, security, general house checks, yet no one sounded the alarm for days. Why? How often did workers actually come by? Was it once a week? Once a month? If they had been checking the home regularly, wouldn't someone have noticed something off? A smell? A lack of movement? A front door left ajar? Yet, for almost 2 weeks, the house remained undisturbed, and no one seemed to notice. It also begs the question, who else had access to their home? Did they have a housekeeper, a nurse, a personal assistant? If so, why hadn't they checked in? And if they didn't, was it by choice? Did Jean and Betsy deliberately keep their circle small, limiting outside contact? Or was there another reason no one came looking for them? And then there's the money. $80 million in assets. A fortune that could change hands overnight. Could that have played a role in their isolation? Had they grown wary of people around them, unsure of who they could trust? Or worse, had someone been waiting for them to pass, knowing that time was on their side? The silence from the family only deepens the mystery. Were they avoiding speculation, trying to grieve privately? Or was there something more complicated beneath the surface? A strained relationship? A history of distance? Or simply a case of an elderly couple who had become accustomed to being on their own? As the days pass, more details may come to light, but for now, the lack of answers only adds to the sense of unease. How does a Hollywood legend, a man once larger than life, slip away so quietly, so unnoticed? And why does it seem like no one close to him was paying attention until it was too late? The deaths of Jean and Betsy Hackman leave behind more questions than answers. What was initially assumed to be a tragic case of carbon monoxide poisoning was quickly ruled out, forcing investigators to look deeper. The circumstances of their final moments don't quite fit together. Jean found in the mudroom, Betsy in the bathroom with pills scattered on the floor, and one of their dogs, locked away in a closet, also dead. The house, untouched for nearly 2 weeks, the front door left open, and a 911 call that raised more suspicions than it answered. Theories have emerged, each offering a potential explanation, but none tying everything together seamlessly. Did Jean suffer a fatal medical episode, leaving Betsy devastated enough to take her own life? Did an argument spiral into an irreversible tragedy? Was this a case of neglect, with no one around to intervene before it was too late? Or is there a missing piece, something we have yet to uncover? Someone else involved? A motive hidden in the background? Then, there's the silence from those closest to them. Only one of Hackman's children has spoken out, while the rest remain quiet. No urgent calls for justice, no push for a deeper investigation. Were they distant from their father in life? Or are they staying silent for another reason? Why were house maintenance workers not checking in more frequently? How does a couple worth millions become so isolated that their deaths go unnoticed for weeks? With so many loose ends, it's impossible to say for certain what happened inside that house. What we do know is that something doesn't feel right. There are too many inconsistencies, too many gaps in the timeline. Maybe time will reveal the truth, or maybe it will remain one of Hollywood's strangest unsolved mysteries. What do you think happened? Was this simply a tragic accident? Or is there more to the story? Drop your theories in the comments, and let's discuss. And if any new developments surface, we'll be here to break them down, piece by piece, until we get to the bottom of what really happened to Jean and Betsy Hackman.